It's a great pleasure for me to be here today with you all. I would like to thank all the staff of the Fulbright and all the groups that worked on making us here today. Thank you. Uh, I was granted with the Fulbright Award as a visiting scholar, and my project was to study the program at the University of Denver program for Museum and Heritage Studies. Uh, well, the aim of the project is to study this program in order to have a similar program here in Egypt, and more specifically in the tourism education. Before I start telling you about my project and my research there, let me tell you about my professional academic activities in Denver, Colorado. As you see, I was so lucky because I had a trip with my department to the Rocky Mountain, where I got a lot of information about the prehistoric sites there, which was very interesting. I was also invited to give a talk about ancient Egyptian civilization and culture, which was very interesting for everyone who was there, for the professors and the students of the department. I was also invited to give another talk to the Egyptian Studies Society in Denver, and it was about the underwater cultural heritage of Alexandria. I also organized a workshop for kids to teach them about hieroglyphic science and ancient Egyptian language, and the kids were very interested and very fond of it. I also get a chance to visit a number of museums there in Colorado, and specifically in Denver, as part of my project. And I consider myself so lucky because I was selected to attend this seminar, the Fulbright Enrichment Seminar, which was entitled as Entrepreneurship, and I had a very good time there, and I met a lot of people, Fulbrighters from all over the world, and I made friendship with some of them. About my research, which is to study the program of the University of Denver for Museum and Heritage Studies, the main points of my research was cultural heritage in Egypt, cultural heritage and museum education, program of the Museum and Heritage Studies of the University of Denver, Colorado, methodology, cultural heritage and tourism and education in Egypt, and conclusions, and finally the suggested framework of a cultural heritage program in Egyptian tourism education in general. Before I tell you about my research, let me, as we know that Egypt is full of cultural heritage, and we have a great legacy and a great wealth of monuments in history. So not only in ancient times, but we also have Greek culture even in modern times in different parts of Egypt. All different cultures live together on one land. And despite that, still we have a great a shortage of having such a program in our education, especially in tourism education. So it's time to have such programs in our education, and specifically in tourism. As part of the heritage culture or cultural heritage part, we have to pay attention to museums, which is the entity or the institutions to preserve our cultural heritage. So part of the research goes with the museum and what a museum is, and also it defines the kinds of the museum studies and all the functional areas of a museum in general. The methodology used in my research is a case study approach and the analytical study in order to study all the curricula, all the courses and syllabi of the program there. I also collected the data through interviews with students and interviews with professors. I also collected data through attending classes in order to know the kind of the teaching strategies used in these kind of programs. I also took part of the internship as a field work of the program was in different museums in Denver.
For the most important part of the research, the findings through this data, the two tables here are actually showing the most important findings. Let me tell you about the most important points of it. The majority of these students are very satisfied with what they get through this program, and they joined this program in order to work in museums, and they all agreed that this program actually affected their career plans in future. For me, the most important part of the research was to come up with a suggested framework for cultural heritage program in Egyptian tourism education, along with its courses, its internship, everything that should be there in such a program. Today, we are planning in my department, which is tourist guiding, we are planning to have a similar program for cultural and heritage studies. And now I have a complete vision of how to run this kind of program, so it will be so useful for us to know about that. For a future vision, actually, I'm planning or I'm dreaming to have a Center for Cultural Heritage Studies in general in my university, Alexandria University, with a partnership with UNESCO. I think this kind of project or a center like that can actually build a good interdependency, interdependencies between different cultures, and that can happen through projects, researches, documentation, and publishing. So let me tell you that my Fulbright grant was a turning point in my life and a lifetime experience. I made some friends while I was there, and they are very great friends actually, but I would like to take the opportunity to thank my hosting professor, Professor Christina Krebs, for all that she has done to me. Actually, she's still a friend, and we still talk, and I would like to thank her very much, and thank you all. Thank you.